Zion, which leads to the Zion Gate, Sha'ar Zion. That's the gate, of course, that has the name that the whole Zionist enterprise is predicated upon, because it's from there that you can look in and see the Temple Mount area and feel that you've really entered the old city of Jerusalem. As you continue down along the side of the wall, you'll find yourself ending up at Sha'ar Yafo, the Jaffa Gate. If you stood with your back to the gate and looked forward and started walking straight, you would end up on Jaffa Road, the main street in downtown Jerusalem. And if you keep walking and walking and walking, you'll end up in the city of Jaffa, which is how it got its name. Then you continue around the wall just up to where City Hall of Jerusalem is, and you find yourself turning to the right. And the next wall you encounter, or gate, is Sha'ar HaChadash, the new gate. Guess which one that is? The most recent of all the dates. No significance, no history to it as far as anyone knows, but it is the newest of all the entry points into the old city. You keep going straight and you end up at the Damascus Gate, as it's known in English. In Hebrew, it's referred to as Sha'ar Shechem. Shechem is up in what's called the West Bank, and it's referred to as Nablus by the Arab residents of the city. And clearly, if you stood with your back to that gate and walked for miles and miles and miles, you would end up in Shechem, or if you kept going, you would end up in Damascus, hence the name. So it all depends on your focal point. As we continue our walk around the walls of the old city, we come to the next gate, which is called Sha'ar Prachim, the flower gate. Not the flower that you make cake or cookies out of, but the flowers that grow in the ground and beautify one's home. So it probably got that name because years and years and years ago, when you entered the old city from that gate, that's probably where the main flower shops were for people who needed to buy flowers because they were going to somebody's home, and it's always nice to bring flowers. After the flower gate, the next main gate we come across is called the Sha'ar HaArayot, the Lion's Gate. That's the gate that in the Six-Day War was the main entry point for the Israel Defense Forces to go into the old city and from there get to the Temple Mount and retake that part of the city of Jerusalem and put it back in Israeli hands. So Sha'ar HaArayot, our lion, of course, is always a symbol of bravery, of courage, and of strength. As we continue, here's where we come to the gate. That's not a gate. That's why it's either 7 or 8, depending on whether or not you count this one. In Hebrew, it's called Sha'ar HaRachamim. In English, it's called the Golden Gate. The reason there's a question about whether to call it a gate or not is because it's all sealed up. It's filled in where you normally would enter the city. In Jewish folklore, that's the place where the Mashiach is going to arrive on his white donkey, coming across the valley, right across from this gate, and right across from the valley is the Mount of Olives. So the Mashiach is supposed to come down that valley into the city of Jerusalem through Sha'ar HaRachamim and announce his presence for the Jewish people. And that's why that gate is special. As we continue around the walls, we've got one more wall left, one more gate left, that is, and that's Sha'ar HaAshpa. Some refer to it in the plural as Sha'ar HaAshpot. It means the garbage gate. In English, it's often called the dung gate. Now, why would we want to stop at the dung gate or a place that's identified with garbage? More importantly, how did it get such a name? There's at least 2 explanations that we've been given over the years. One is to suggest that in ancient times, that may have been the garbage dump of the city of Jerusalem. For wherever people lived within the city, and of course there was a lot of business and commercial enterprises within the old city as well, that eventually when garbage accumulated, the individual citizens would bring it to this gate and let it accumulate there, and it probably blew away in the air, and there wasn't much of a residential area outside at that point, and that's one theory. The other theory has to do with the 3 times a year that Jews are mandated to make a pilgrimage, literally come by foot or donkey or horse or camel and make their way to the city of Jerusalem from wherever they lived in Israel or perhaps outside of Israel even, and they would make their way 3 times a year, and that would be Pesach, Shavuot, which is coming up in 2 weeks, and Sukkot, and offer their holiday sacrifices on those 3 times a year. And so the crowds would come from all over the country. Naturally, after all that hiking or riding on a donkey or walking by foot, their feet would be dirty. Everything would be dirty. They'd be filled with all the dirt that they accumulated on their long trip and journey to Jerusalem. So the Sha'ar HaAshpot may be the place, according to some, that they would rinse off, wash off, clear away the dirt, and be purified to enter the Temple Mount and offer their sacrifices there. So those are the 7 or 8 gates. It all depends on whether you count the one that's sealed in as a gate or not. And it's certainly part of our history and part of the history of the wall surrounding the old city of Jerusalem. One last point as we complete our tour, and that is that the last gate, the Sha'ar HaAshpah, good thing to remember once we're back to being able to visit our synagogues and congregations. There will come a time, God willing it will be soon, but whenever it is, we should remember the story of the dung gate or the garbage gate, because a lot of us come to our modern temples, our synagogues, carrying a lot of emotional, psychological dirt with us, and it's a good idea, whether we have angers, we have resentments, we have all kinds of negativity that we experience in the course of our day-to-day routines. When we come to shul, we should leave all the schmutz behind. It's a good reminder that the Sha'ar HaAshpot gives to all of us. Let's keep that in mind when we start getting ready to come back to our shuls. The last point I want to make before we enter the Havdalah ceremony, I played a little game with myself, and that has to do with what's called gematria, the numerical value of Hebrew letters. And if you take the 8 gates of the old city, Tzion, Yafo, Chadash, Shechem, Prachim, Arayot, Rachamim, and Ashpot, and you take the first letter, the first Hebrew letter of all those gates, all those names, and you add up the numerical value of all those letters, it adds up to 690. Trust me, I tried it. If you then add to the 690 another 6 to represent the 6 days of the 6-day war that brought all of these gates back into Jewish hands, then you have 696. And there's a fascinating discovery that 696 is the gematria, the numerical value of the Hebrew word tirtzu, which automatically, in my mind at least, brings the association with that great statement that Theodor Herzl made, Im tirtzu, ein zo agada. If you will it, that's what tirtzu means. If you will it, it will not be a legend. That attitude is what led to the dream of Israel becoming the reality of Israel. And that dream is what helped keep our connection to the city of Jerusalem even when we couldn't enter it. And now we can celebrate the fact that every part of Jerusalem is available to us as members of the Jewish people around the world. So I pray for you, all of you, that you have a good, wonderful week, a week in which anything that's apart, separate, broken, can come back together as we are celebrating this week with Yom Yerushalayim. With that, we're now ready to begin Havdalah. So I'm going to ask you and remind you to make sure you have a cup of wine or grape juice, a spice of some kind, and a special candle to light. I'm going to get my guitar out. And if you've noticed, we've been following 3 musical themes: the traditional melody one week, the Debbie Friedman melody the second week, and then my own individual original one the third week, and we use that as a 3-part cycle. And we'll start with Eliyahu Hanavi, then we'll sing Havdalah with my melody, and we'll end by counting the Omer. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagiladi, Imera v'yameinu, Yavo Eleinu, Im Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben David. Hine el Yeshuati, eftach velo echad, ki azid bezimrat Adonai, ayehi li Yeshua. Now we're going to count the Omer.
1 sec.
After we put the candle up. Oopsie. Excellent. So we count the Omer. The day that had been today was 37. So tonight we go to the next number. Hineni muchan u'zuman l'kayem mitzvat aseh shel svirata Omer. Kemo shekatuv b'Torah u'sfartem lachem mimacharat haShabbat. Miyom aviachem et Omer ha'tenufa, Sheva Shabbatot temimot tihena, ad mimacharat haShabbat hashvi'it, tisperu chamishim yom. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav, tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Hayom shmona u'shloshim yom, shem chamisha shavuot, u'shlosha yamim la'omer. Tonight begins the 38th day, making it 5 weeks and 3 days into the Omer. Have a wonderful week. Shavua Tov.